Hello, I'm Lyndsey of Calligraphy, and alongside Manuscript Pen Company, we are going to be learning a lovely Cosy calligraphy tutorial. This is suitable for all levels and is done in a pointed modern calligraphy style. I really hope you enjoy. To get started, here are some of the supplies that I'll be using. So a handy little pot of water and a pipette. So first of all, we can prep our nib. So I tend to give it a little drop of water on a napkin close by that I can use to clean the nib regularly, and we can just give the nib a gentle clean to make sure any oil is taken off. The pen holder that I'm using today is the Oblique pen holder with a Manuscript ink, and you can buy this from the Manuscript Oblique pen dip set. A lovely HB pencil and some black ink from Manuscript Pen Company. I will also be using various types of paper, and towards the end, to make it look slightly more finished and to give as a gift, you can use a watercolour paper. Now, to hold your pen, you don't want your hand all the way up here or all the way down here. So for right-handed calligraphers, you want to hold it just like this. So a centimetre away from the end of the pen holder. You can see how it's balancing on my middle finger here. It's just here, slotted through. Okay, so when we write on the paper, you push down two pointy bits, the tines open, and when you pull down they stay open and parallel. That gets your thick shaded stroke. Now, you always have your paper just twisted slightly to the left because I'm trying to point my lettering in this direction. So it'd be going up, down, up, down. My nib, I like just to push down and just get rid of the first couple of blobs. So we're going to warm up with the pencil. We're going to do some ovals. Clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, and then we'll just do some loops so you can make them really loopy, not too loopy, and then the other way around, and then maybe some of these as well, just so you can practice that shape. And then you can do the same with your nib and ink. So let's just do the descender loops. So you can start with no pressure, pressure and release, or start with pressure and then release as you come down, so you have a tapered stroke. You can make them really nice and narrow, but you can make them crazy big. And then just practice this shape: over top, pressure, release and pull through. Up, over top, pressure, pull through. So now we're just going to work on the shape of the lettering. We always do this mocked up in pencil first. I find this a lot easier, especially as a beginner, to write out in pencil and then trace it. So you can start with your L, move it over here. You can start with your L like this, or you can start with your L doing this. Okay, this dip here always goes below the line, like that. It never sits on the line, just doesn't look great for my style of calligraphy. Always making sure that this is as horizontal as you can get it. If you struggle with that shape, this is a good practice to do. Okay, so let's work on let's. So we want it to be nice and flourished down, you know, it's going to be the entrance to our lettering. So this is your L. You can, if you do struggle, just put a little baseline in here. Then I want the lettering to kind of go above and below the baseline, so dip up and below, so it's quite bouncy. And we're having our entrance into our E, which looks like this. Okay, and then I tend to finish my E's with this shape. And it makes it easier to connect to the next letter. So if I was going to connect to the next letter, you would go in like this, down and out again. So let's start with our E. Here we go. So that's your E, and then you would just take this section here and you would go into your T. It's up to you whether your T is this shape or whether you add a little loop to it, which is what I'm going to do, which is like this. I like a little loop at the moment. So here we go, up, bounce it around, leave it there because that's where the S is going to go. The S. And then we're going to go through, create the crossbar for the T. and then add your okay, and thinking about the next bit, so you're going to have the word get. You want it to be as central as possible. So we're going to start here, and then the piece of the loop is going to come this way. Okay, and then the crossbar of the T is going to come out here. So here we go. Start this bit, and then we're going to bring it down and around, and you can practice this shape without any ink or pencil, just so you can learn the movement. Okay. Get. Just going to move the paper up a little bit. And then start the C here. Again, with the C, you can just have your normal C shape, or you can just have a little loop. Here, I didn't over flourish it for this section. Here we go. O's, I start on this side and we go over the top like this. Again, slightly over exaggerated. S, stop, and then we want the Y again to have a nice flourish coming out here. This part first. Like that. And this is the structure, and you can change this if you want, you know, maybe if you're not happy with this here, you can get rid of that loop. Maybe if I put this up a little bit. Okay, you can see how you can just change things, maybe create a gap there between those two. This is where a light box comes in really handy, because you can trace through different types of paper, or you can also go directly over the lettering, wait for the ink to dry, and then rub it off. It's entirely up to you with what preferences you use. If you don't have a light box, you can use tracing paper, you can use carbon paper to transfer your lettering onto different surfaces. You can use also like a layout paper or a thin paper, which means it traces easily. With a light box, obviously it's a lot clearer, and you can go through thicker paper stocks, so you know you can actually see through a watercolour paper quite easily. Good quality watercolour papers here too. That's a different type there as well. So a light box does come in really, really handy with lettering. Let's trace it onto this watercolour paper. So I'm going to have my ink pot fairly close by with my scrap piece of paper here. Going to make sure that I've got plenty of ink on my nib. I'm going to hold my paper in place. And what I tend to do, because I'm doing pointed pen calligraphy, is I will twist the pad around so I can get the angle. So I'm sat here, and this is how the angle that I'm writing at, okay? To make it easier for me. Now take your time, don't forget to breathe. It also doesn't matter if it takes you a couple of tries. You can see I'm stopping in between each character. I'm reloading my nib, scratching off any excess ink, which I will show you in a minute. So you can see here, there's a big blob of ink. If I get a piece of paper and push this down, see that big blob comes off. So I have less ink on my nib, which makes it easier to control. Each time I'm just going to reload my nib with ink. If I carried on going, I guarantee it will run out. I don't worry if when I'm tracing it, I don't stick to the lines completely. It really doesn't matter. Think about what the outcome is going to be. No one's going to know that you've missed certain lines here. Apart from you, but don't be hard on yourself. Now this is where I say you can edit things as you go. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit here. mistake there. I thought I was writing the word year. Fix that. Nice. I'm not going to do loop here. I'm going to go like this. And because the ink is still wet, I don't want to drag my nib through it because it will pull the ink through. So you leave a little gap there. And then here we go. Right, so that's how it looks. Finished. Let's just take the tracing out and you can get a better look. So not too shabby. Turn it off. There. Looks beautiful. Now we have to wait and be patient and let this dry. So here's a zoomed in version for you to see it in more detail. So around. Here's the leaf. Okay. Once the ink is dry, you can then add your other pieces. So we're going to be going from this angle here out and around. So I'm going to do three circles there, ovals, and a couple leaves. Now, if you don't feel confident doing this straight away, you can do it with your HB pencil or a mechanical pencil, just so you can mark out where you want everything to look. Again, if you don't trace over it completely, that's fine. It just gives you a visual cue of where you want things to go. I always find 3 leaves work really well. And then maybe one here. And then we can add some little embers later on. So the point of waiting for this to dry is because you're moving the paper around to get to these points, and sometimes you might get your hand in over here. Here we go. Try and keep that oval shape. And then let's add some leaves. Add the final one. Yeah. And then we're just going to do some little embers here. Imagine like a fire. You could also flick some ink on there if you wanted to. Change the colour, I think. Nice autumnal orange or brown. Look great here. So there's your final piece, and then wait for it all to dry. So I usually give it a good 24 hours, and then using rubber out. And that is your final piece. If you have enjoyed this tutorial, it'd be great if you could like or subscribe, because there'll be lots more to come. Thank you for joining me.